tell me about Scotland.
What about it?
You just gave a great segue by saying Orion. So tell me about your experience in Scotland and why you chose Scotland for all your magical places and retreats to go to.
Oh my goddess, that just happened. I got approached by a retreat company who was like, oh, we're going to do everything for you and we'll pay you like pennies on the dollar for every person that comes and signs up. I was like, you want me to lead a retreat and you're going to pay me basically nothing to do it? Like, no, sorry. If I'm going to do a retreat, I'm not going to do it the same as everybody else in this like little jungle Costa Rican thing. I was like, I'm going to do a retreat at a castle or something. And I was kind of joking. And then I was like, actually, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I just started looking up castles for rent. And the moment that I saw this particular one from this drone view, it had a labyrinth and has beautiful, it's like 2,000 acres of private estate and coastal, just private beach. It was just magnificent. The moment I saw it, I was like, that's the place. And I'd never even been to Scotland. And I set foot on that land and I had 3 days ahead of time of the first retreat a couple years ago to just be on the land. And I had never, except for my redwood forest, again, where I grew up and have lived my whole young adult life, I've never had a piece of land so viscerally and instantly be as if I had a tour guide and it was just the earth. She was like, okay, I'm going to need you to come down here and please check out this tree. There's a fairy queen that's been absorbed into the tree. You can see every inch of her shape here. We're going to come meet the unicorns down at this corner of the creek. Please just sit here and meditate for 20 minutes and the unicorns will come to meet you. You know, it was like wild. Oh, see this ridge here? Yes, we're going to be doing a dragon activation here. The dragons will come and meet everyone right here at this ridge. That'll be on Sunday. I mean, it was wild. She just showed me. And speaking of St. George and the church and the dragons, the national animal of Scotland is in fact the unicorn.
I know.
And the crest of England is a lion with the unicorn with a chain around its neck, further enslavement of the magical and mystical creatures and animals. And I have had someone at every single one of my retreats that I've done in Scotland see a unicorn in real life. Now, that's not one of my total great psychic gifts. I have like 10, 20 in both eyes. I have incredible vision, but I don't see a lot in terms of like visionary states. So these were two girls, like they both live in Texas. One was raised Jehovah's Witness, like one was raised super Christian. These are not like the super woo-woo girls at the retreat. And the first time, the two of them came in and they were like, oh my God, we saw a unicorn. It was so big, it was like made of moonlight. I mean, they were high. They were completely altered. And there was no alcohol served at this event. They are not the type that take drugs. They had seen a unicorn. They came in and like they were vibrating. You could feel them viscerally just buzzing. And that has happened now at all of my retreats where someone has been out and about at night and seen a giant glowing horse that looks like it's made of moonlight. And there are horses on the land, but none of them are white. And it's just been such an incredible miracle. And I think that even, you know, when you look at Welsh, like all those, there's like 48 letters and none of them are vowels, you know, like it's a very dragon language. Their flag totally is a dragon, you know. And also you're a scientist, you know, like fossils take a very specific mineral composition to occur. Any flying being has very light, hollow, porous bones. It's very likely that dragons existed on this planet and then weren't fossilized, or the church burned all of their remains, you know, so that we couldn't find them. There's no way that dragons were present in every major mythology of every civilization across the entire planet and didn't exist. And I just think that unicorns and fairies and leprechauns and all of those things are the same. And so I felt this very deep magical connection to Scotland from the moment that I found that castle, and then exponentially more so the second that I landed. And so I've just continued doing retreats there because she just shows me the way every time. She just guides me. I've had incredible like selkies, you know, the seal women. We were doing these bathing rituals with all this seaweed, and the seaweed was literally becoming our seal skin. And then we would go down to the ocean and see all the seals, and they'd be like coming up and barking and looking at us, and just pure straight up magic. in every moment. So Scotland is really one of the most sacred spiritual homes for me because of that.
It's interesting. Even I guess when I founded my group of companies after I left sort of the corporate world in 2011, I decided to start a company. And at that time, I didn't have any boy children, right? I didn't have any male children. And so I thought maybe I'll never have. And I was the last in my line of Grant, right, descendants, and my brother's gay, so that was it. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have a son. Later I got remarried, and I did have a son, and his name's William. But I thought, okay, well, maybe if I never have a son, then I'll name this new company I'm starting after something that feels significant to my family. And so I named it Strathspey Crowns. So there's a place in Scotland in the Highlands that is on Loch Ness, which it's really close to it. And it is where the ancestral home of the Grant family is.
Yeah.
And in 2014, I tried to buy Castle Grant in Scotland.
That was the Grant Tower that we were looking at, right? With Matthias.
Yeah, well, there's two castles. There's one that's called Grant Tower, which has also got another name, which is Urquhart.
Yeah, and that's the one that's
Castle.
on Loch Ness. Okay,
that one's on Loch Ness, but it was also Castle Grant. That was one of the castles. There are two castles. And then the other one is Castle Grant, which is in a town called Granttown on Spey, right, not far from Inverness.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was interesting because the other night when we were with Matthias at Blue's house, Matthias was talking to Charlie about his favorite place to visit is Scotland.
Yeah.
And so I, of course, kind of overheard, and I was like, where in Scotland? And he goes, well, you probably have never heard of it. It's in the Highlands somewhere. No one ever goes. And I said, try me. And he said, well, I go here all the time. I go to this castle, and I do all these rituals there and everything. And then he says, I go to this place called Clavicairn. And Clavicairn is I didn't even know this part of it. It's a megalithic, it's like 3 mounds that are megalithic. And it was actually sort of, the story of them is told in the TV the series that's called Outlander, right? Which you may have seen. And so the whole thing is like about I
took my mom on a 3-week Outlander tour after that first retreat. So
okay.
I'm slightly familiar, yeah.
So this is interesting because I said, wait a minute, Clavicairn, isn't that the place that's in that television show Outlander? And he says yes. And he said, and you know it's Orion's belt, right? The shape of it's Orion's belt. And I was like, I didn't know that because I never thought to look at it from an aerial view. But it's perfect Orion's belt.
Wow.
And so then I was like, wait a minute, let me look it up. So I looked it up on Google Maps, and it's right in between. It's literally on the Grant ancestral land.
Whoa.
Right in between the two castles.
Whoa.
Right. So then I show it to Matthias. I'm like, what castle do you go to? He says, oh, I go all the time to Urquhart. It's got the view of Loch Ness. And I go there. He goes there to see the dragon, right? Which is Loch Ness. Nessie. Exactly. Nessie. And so I was like, you know, that's like Grant Castle, right?
Yeah.
And he's like,
wild.
And it just hit him right then.
Yeah.
He's like, wait a minute. So you have Orion's belt on Grant Castle land in that area? And I'm like, what the heck?
Wow.
I'm sure Jason, my producer back here, who's like runs the podcast, is probably like going, what the hell, mate? Right? It's like, I'm sure he's probably thinking that right now. Right?
He's got all the Scottish magic for us here. Thank God, as we got it anchored. Yeah, anchored in here with us. Yeah.
But isn't that so bizarre? So I had this whole thing where, ultimately I named the company Strathspey, and all of this is right in that same area of land. It's in Inverness area, which is, the county of Strathspey is right adjacent to that.
Cool.
And so you never know. When we think that everything, is just sort of like, we always ask ourselves the question, is it free will, is it destiny?
Yeah.
And what I've come to the conclusion of now is that literally everything is both.
Yeah.